It has been a week since the fated shooting and assassination of father, Christian, and the political commentator Charlie Kirk. The internet remains in an uproar as we witness the dominoes falling all around us from this historical event. While the shooter responsible for the attack was brought into custody after a 33-hour manhunt, we all remember the FBI fumbling that religiously, and the kid eventually had to turn himself in alongside his father, calling the U.S. Marshals on him. We are learning more information about Tyler Robinson, his motives, and possible connections to collaborators and co-conspirators day by day. And so my name is Peter Wiggin. If you want to hear breaking news on this subject, if you want to hear about cultural topics and other topics concerning the goings-on in the United States of America, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to get your company. I don't have any followers right now, and so if you'd like to leave a comment as well, I'll definitely see it. I'll definitely respond. Anyway, let's get into the video. On September 10th, Tyler Robinson from Washington, Utah, an area suburb of St. George, Utah, ended the life of Charlie Kirk in front of a live audience of 3,000 college students at Utah Valley University. Being a student in Utah myself, I know and have spoken to many people present at the shooting and are still trying to process what happened directly in front of their eyes. I think the rest of the American population can sympathize with that. It seems like the people on the internet, whether they be political commentators, random anons on Twitter with anime profile pictures like me, or anybody else, just can't seem to comprehend, calculate, compute what happened and what is happening over the course of the past week. If you haven't seen my old video, I made a video talking about Tyler Robinson and his life and the history that we know a couple days ago. Feel free to go watch that. If you didn't, I'll give you a little synopsis. Tyler Robinson, born in Utah. He went to Utah State University with a full-ride presidential scholarship for getting a 34 on the ACT and a 4.0 GPA. After a semester, he dropped out from his pre-engineering degree and went to become an electrician's apprentice at Dixie Technical College back at his home in southern Utah. And ever since then, he's kind of been off the grid. Whenever he was caught, people like his grandmother came out saying she couldn't believe that this happened. He was a squeaky clean individual. But since we've learned, he espoused sentiment towards his family during dinner time, saying he hated the rhetoric of Charlie Kirk. And so it seems, although his parents are God-fearing Republicans, that he may have strayed off the path. He may have been a black sheep in the family. And there was a bit of a debate over that on the internet, whether he was a left-winger, whether he was a right-winger, whether he was a transgender individual, whether he was a groyper. That has led to a lot of contention over the past week, and we're starting to learn that although he may not be transgender himself, he was sympathetic to a lot of left-wing ideologies. On one of the bullet casings that he shot, it said, "Hey, catch this, fascist," which no right-winger is going to say that. And he was also dating a transgender person named Lance Twiggs, whom he was living with, and we will discuss Lance Twiggs later. He is a crucial character in the new information that is dropped. Anyway, yesterday, September 16th, the Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray announced the official charges that would be placed against Tyler Robinson. There was a little affidavit that I shared in my video 2 days ago, and this lines up pretty similarly with about a charge or two that were added. He will be charged for aggravated murder, which is a first-degree felony, discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, which is a second-degree felony, 2 counts of obstruction of justice, a third-degree felony, and 2 counts of witness tampering, which are also third-degree felonies. And finally, a commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, which is a third-degree felony. And prosecutors have since filed a notice to seek the death penalty, as Governor Cox and many other people have called for over the course of the past week, the death penalty being legal and executable in the state of Utah. What we know now is that the next hearing is scheduled for September 29, 2025. And we also know that Tyler Robinson still hasn't been fully cooperating with law enforcement, despite the fact that he turned himself in. So, a question that I had, you might have this question as well before we get into the meat of this video, is why not terrorism charges for him? Luigi Mangione was charged with terrorism charges, although I believe they were dropped. Maybe I can get fact-checked on that. Why aren't terrorism charges being brought up against Tyler Robinson? And I'm not a lawyer. I'm a STEM major. I'm a biophysics major. This is completely out of my wheelhouse, but I did a bit of research. And so pretty much the reason that terrorism charges aren't going to be brought against Tyler Robinson, from what I understand, is because of the legal definition of terrorism in the U.S. at the federal level and at the state level. Each requires specific criteria under 18 U.S.C. 2331. Under this statute, domestic terrorism is defined as acts that are dangerous to human life and violate federal or state criminal laws. This does that. Appear intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence government policy by intimidation or coercion, or affect government conduct by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, alongside occurring primarily within U.S. jurisdiction. And reading these second points, to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, I feel like some people on the argument could bring that argument forward. This act was to intimidate and coerce a lot of the right wing by silencing one of their figureheads, silencing one of the people that refused to have speech shut down, by killing him in front of a group of his devout followers on a college campus, when Charlie Kirk was merely trying to speak, merely trying to espouse his opinions, merely trying to debate. You could argue that that could be used to intimidate or coerce a civilian population. However, that goes against the evidence that needs to be brought in court, which doesn't exist. There is no evidence to the intent of Tyler Robinson's actions. We know that he talked to his family saying he despises the hate that Charlie Kirk has been promulgating across the internet and across college campuses, but there's no evidence that the purpose of his shooting was to coerce or intimidate a civilian population. There's no evidence that he was trying to influence government policy by intimidation or coercion. There was no evidence that he was trying to conduct mass destruction or mass assassination or kidnapping. It was just this lone event, silencing somebody that he didn't like. And under Utah state law, it's alongside the same thing. You have to, under Utah Code 76-51073, the domestic terrorism is defined as something that is intended to cause fear in the public or a substantial group, intimidate the government, or cause significant disruption. And although that was the effect, that's what happened due to the actions of Tyler Robinson, that there is no evidence as to his intent to do so. All we have evidence is that he went and he assassinated one singular individual. And that's what lawyers go for. They go for the low-hanging fruit. And the low-hanging fruit were the charges that we read earlier: aggravated murder, discharge of a firearm, 2 counts of obstruction of justice, 2 counts of witness tampering, and commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child. And really, the ends are the same. Through those charges that can easily be placed on Tyler Robinson, as evidence is brought in a court of law to a jury of his peers, he will receive the death penalty. There is no getting out of this. There is no finding an impartial jury of his peers at this point. I'm sorry to say. I know that the law is a virtue. I know the law is something that we need to uphold in this country, but it's just like the Derek Chauvin case. Tyler Robinson, whether you agree with what he did or not, and I hope you don't, because that's evil, that's despicable, and you should be cast out of polite society, as I've talked about in the past couple videos. Derek Chauvin was thrown into jail despite following Minneapolis Police Department procedures, and although a lot of people would agree that he committed a heinous act, he was still thrown into prison because that was the sentiment of the jury. That was the sentiment of the court. And that's going to be the sentiment of the jury of Tyler Robinson's peers. I can predict that. I can tell you that now. And so some other information that has been released that I wanted to follow up on is text messages. Text messages from Tyler himself to his lover, Lance Twiggs, whom he lived with, a transgender, male-to-female transgender individual. And so I don't want to adulterate your mind on these texts in any way. I want you to formulate your own opinion, and then I want to see if my opinion aligns with yours. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to read these verbatim. I'm reading these texts as transcribed on the BBC, and it starts off by Robinson saying, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." When the roommate looked under the keyboard, there was a note that allegedly read, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Lance says, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet." Orem is the city in which Charlie Kirk was assassinated at the Utah Valley University campus. "Shouldn't be long until I can get home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you." "You weren't the one who did it, right?" "I am. I'm sorry." "I thought they caught the person." "No. They grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." "Why?" Why did I do it? Yeah, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again, hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. How long have you been planning this? A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the expletive will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. ... Remember how I was engraving bullets? The expletive messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge ooh on Fox News, I might have a stroke. Alright, I'm gonna have to leave it. That really expletive sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Sad face. Delete this exchange, Robinson says. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle and it is very unique. He's calling me right now. Not answering. Since Trump's got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. You are all I worry about, love. And the roommate responds, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson ends by saying, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. And now we know that Tyler Robinson himself is going to be given a public defender because he doesn't have the funds for his own private lawyer. So what do you think? Have you collected your thoughts? My opinion is this is the most convenient text thread of all time. And it does three things. First off, the thread gives a motive. The thread talks about, I had the opportunity to kill Charlie Kirk and I took it. These texts also give a series of events in order. I was planning this. It was premeditated. I went by. I committed the act. I hid my gun in a bush in a towel. The cops are looking for me. The cops are looking for the gun. Oh no, my dad's calling. He wants to know where Grandpa's rifle went. Oh, I'm going to turn myself in. I'm cornered. I wish I could have taken this to the grave, but alas. And finally, it absolves the transgender roommate of any responsibility. I like to explain it in a Breaking Bad reference. I saw this, Matt Walsh posted this on Twitter, and I recently rewatched Breaking Bad, so I had to talk about this. In one of the last episodes, Walter White, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, spoiler alert, sorry, but go watch it right now. It came out years ago, over a decade ago. In one of the final episodes, Walter White steals his daughter Holly from his wife. His wife calls the cops, they send out an Amber Alert, and then Walter White calls the home again. And this is after Hank's death. This is after all of the events that transpired then. And what Walter White does is he strategically yells at Skyler in the phone. He yells in a very aggressive way. He tries to make it seem that he was controlling Skyler the whole time. He tries to make it seem like the only reason that she went along with what he was doing was because he forced her to. He called her names. He yelled at her. He cussed at her. And in the end, it was able to convince the people around her that she was absolved of crime. She wasn't involved. Or if she was involved, she didn't have any responsibility, and she was involved because she was forced to do so. That's kind of what this does. If the transgender roommate or any other co-conspirators were involved in the planning of the shooting, what this does is it shows that Tyler went out alone, and this is how he broke the news to the person closest to him, his lover, Lance Twiggs. I'm going to be honest, I think the texts are fake. Whether they were faked by Robinson himself, faked by law enforcement, faked by the transgender roommate, who knows? Who knows? But if you read through the text, it sounds so staged. I'm a Gen Z male. I'm 20 years old. Nobody in my age group, not even the smart kids that get 34s on their ACT and their transgender lovers, speak like this. Really? He says, I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How will I explain this to my old man? Yeah, people don't talk like that. People don't text like that. People don't communicate like that as Gen Z males in the 21st century. What does this mean? That I don't know. This is just information that's come out. You can come to your own conclusion. I've given you my opinion. Let me know what your opinion is in the comments. If you agree, if you disagree. You know, there are still a lot of loose ends regarding this situation. First off is George Zinn. George Zinn was the provocateur, a Jewish man that got up right as the bullet entered Charlie Kirk's neck and started screaming and started distracting law enforcement, saying, "Shoot me now, shoot me now." That was the first individual that the FBI and law enforcement arrested as a suspect for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Who has the instinct to do that? Who has the instinct to get up and put all guns on yourself right after a murder of a political figure? To me, that screams a conspiracy. Whether it's a conspiracy just between, let's say, Tyler Robinson and George Zinn, or there was a third party involved. There's something there. And not only that, but George Zinn was recently arrested by the FBI under child pornography charges. Interesting. We knew he was a creepy old man, but the way that all these pieces just seem to fall into place is interesting, to say the least. That's the only word to describe it. There's Bill Ackman as well. I'm going to release a clip about this, but Nick Fuentes had a monologue outlining the trail following Bill Ackman and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, all the way to, if you would believe it, Matt Robinson, the father of Tyler Robinson, as Bill Ackman announced a $1 million reward for whoever could find the shooter. You have Max Blumenthal as well, who released an article last week saying that Charlie Kirk was receiving a lot of pressure from Israel and from individual donors and people on the inside, that he needed to start supporting Israel more fervently. People are coming out saying that Charlie Kirk denied a $150 million bonus to Turning Point USA and its organization, doubling the amount of budget that Turning Point USA would have over the course of a year to lead Charlie Kirk down the line of supporting the Israeli state. Now, do I think that Israel is behind this? What I'm saying right now might allude to the fact that I think that's the case, but I don't. I don't see a direct connection. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, and there's never going to be direct evidence. There's never going to be a direct connection. But eventually there may be enough circumstantial evidence that piles up for me to consider that to be the case. But right now, I think it's Tyler Robinson. I think he was radicalized online. I don't know what he was radicalized by. The internet and its algorithms are a sinister mystery, a nebulous form of evil that seems to be able to corrupt the minds of vast numbers of individuals in this country. And that might be a cop-out. That might be some ethereal reason for the evil the tangible evil that this kid has committed. But I don't know what to say besides this. If more information comes out, I'll let y'all know first. I'll make a video talking about this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Were those texts fake? Was the letter faked? Did Israel kill Charlie Kirk? I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Stay safe.